The sun baked down on Dust Creek, turning the main street into a river of gold-colored dirt that stung the eyes and choked the lungs. Wagons rolled by, wheels clattering over the cracked ground. Horses snorted at the heat. People moved swiftly between the mercantile, the saloon, and the sheriff's office, eyes forward, minds on their own survival. No one looked at the girl kneeling beside the horse trough. Emily. Harper tried to keep her hands steady as she cupped a small poundful of warm water to her lips. Her dress, once the neat calico of a rancher's daughter, now hung loose and torn like a rag someone had thrown away. Her boots, her father's last gift, had holes so wide dust slipped in and coated her feet. Hunger gnawed at her gut until it felt sharp, like a blade carving pieces out of her from the inside. 3 days ago, Emily still had a home. 3 days ago, she still had hope, before the cattle raid. Before her father died defending what little they had left. Before the bankmen swept in like vultures to take. The ranch her parents had worked their entire lives to build. They left her nothing but debts. Dust and a loneliness so wide she feared she might fall into it and never crawl out. Her stomach growled loudly, drawing a few irritated glances from passers-by. One woman muttered under her breath, "Beggar trash." Another crossed the street entirely. Emily's hands trembled as she approached a merchant sweeping his porch. She swallowed her pride, what was left of it, and whispered, "Sir, please. Do you have any scraps? I'll work for them." The merchant tightened his grip on the broom and didn't bother to hide his scowl. "Don't want trouble. Best move along." Trouble. Emily wasn't trouble, she was lost. Her legs weakened, and she found herself sinking to her knees again. The sky blurred above her, the heat dizzying. She pressed her hand to her forehead. When had she last eaten? Yesterday? The day before? She couldn't remember. Her vision darkened at the edges. Voices buzzed around her like flies. She blinked rapidly, trying to keep from collapsing face first into the dirt. Just when she felt the world sway and tilt, a large shadow fell over her. The chatter around her suddenly died. The silence was heavy, sharp with curiosity and fear. Emily forced her head up. A man stood there tall, broad-shouldered, his skin sunburnished and strong. His long dark hair was tied back with a strip of leather, and his clothes, even from the dust, carried the unmistakable look of wealth earned through labor. Finely stitched leather vest, silver-studded belt, boots without a single crack. A powerful horse stood behind him, sleek black, strong enough to trample fear itself. But it wasn't his wealth that struck her deepest. It was his eyes. They were warm amber, filled with a kind of calm authority she had never seen in any lawman or rancher. He knelt down in front of her, not towering above like a judge, but leveling his gaze with hers. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice low and steady. Emily opened her mouth, but only dry air came out. She tried again, just hungry. The man's eyes softened, not in pity, but in understanding. "What is your name?" he asked. "Emily," she whispered. He nodded once. "Emily," he repeated, as if memorizing it. "All right." He reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a wrapped piece of fry bread, still warm, and held it toward her. Emily stared, hesitant. He noticed. "You don't have to pay in fear," he said gently. Her hand shook as she took the food. She devoured it fast, tears streaming down her cheeks, not because of relief, but because warmth in her stomach felt foreign, almost painful. Then, still watching her carefully, the man said the words that would change everything. "Don't beg the dust. Beg me to help." Emily froze. The street felt silent again, as if everyone waited for her next breath, her next choice. She looked up, fear and hope battling in her heart. Who are you?" He rose to his full height and extended his hand to her. "I am Asher Redwolf," he said, "and I do not leave people to die in the dirt." Emily stared at his offered hand steady, strong, and waiting. And in that moment, for the first time since her world shattered, she felt a flicker of something. Not fear, not hunger. Possibility. With trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his and her new life began. Emily expected the man to lead her to the sheriff's office, or maybe to the church where charity was doled out with cold eyes and long lectures. But Usha Redwolf did neither. He helped her onto his horse, its massive muscles shifting beneath her like coiled thunder, and swung up behind her with a fluid grace. Emily clung to the saddle horn as the horse surged forward, hooves pounding the earth in a steady rhythm. Dust Creek grew smaller behind them, the judgmental stares of its townsfolk swallowed by distance. Despite exhaustion, Emily's mind churned with questions. Why was this man helping her? What did he expect in return? Usha didn't speak during the ride, didn't demand her story or her gratitude. Instead, his presence behind her felt protective, steady as bedrock. Emily dared a glance at his hand resting loosely on the reins. Strong hands. Capable hands. Hands that could take or save. A shiver slipped through her, not of fear, but of uncertainty. She had no one left. Trust was a dangerous choice. The ranch appeared like a small kingdom in the valley-wide green pastures, a big white stable, smoke rising from a ranch house built sturdy against storms. Horses grazed freely, glossy and well-fed, coats reflecting the sun, a ranch far bigger than the one Emily lost. A few ranch hands stopped their work as they approached. Emily noticed tension ripple through the group like wind through high grass. That's trouble you're bringing home. Boss, one grumbled under his breath. Usha ignored him completely. He dismounted first, then helped Emily down with surprising gentleness. Come, he said. Inside the ranch house, it was cool, built from cedar logs that smelled faintly of fresh rain. A curtain separated rooms, giving privacy where Emily expected none. He led her into the kitchen where a cast-iron pot simmered over a low flame. Sit, Usha said. Eat. Emily sat stiff, like a stray animal, unsure if a hand would pet or strike. He ladled stew into a bowl, beans, potatoes, and tender beef. Her stomach clenched hard from the smell alone. As she ate, Usha leaned against the counter and studied her, not as an object, but as someone he needed to understand. When she finished, he spoke quietly. You have no one. No home. It wasn't a question. Emily's throat tightened. All she could do was nod. Then you will stay here, he said simply. Her spoon clattered in the bowl. Why? You don't even know me. Usha crossed his arms, muscle shifting beneath tan skin. I know hunger steals dignity. I know loss leaves people drowning on dry land. Someone saw me once when I had nothing. Now I do the same. Emily swallowed hard. Something in her chest, something wounded and defensive, resisted his kindness. I can work, she said quickly. I'll earn my keep. Good, he replied, because I don't give charity. I give chances. Their eyes held for a moment that felt longer than it was. He handed her a folded blanket and pointed toward a small room with a narrow bed and a wash basin. You will sleep here tonight. Tomorrow we talk about work. Emily stepped inside, heart pounding. The room smelled like fresh pine, clean, safe, almost too good to be real. She ran her fingers over the blanket-soft wool, not the coarse scraps she expected. Tears burned her eyes again. Not the tears of hunger this time, but relief so strong it scared her. A soft knock came at the doorframe. Usha stood there, leaning casually but his eyes sharp. You should know, he began. Some in town may speak against you staying with someone like me. Emily frowned. Because you're Apache. He nodded once. No anger, just truth. They fear what they do not understand, and some hate what they cannot control. Emily lowered her gaze. They already treat me like dirt. I don't care what they think anymore." A corner of his mouth lifted slightly, almost a smile. "Good, then rest. The world looks different when the sun returns." He turned to leave, but paused. His voice softened, unexpectedly intimate. "Emily," he said, "you survived more than most ever will. Don't forget that." She didn't know how to respond. Words felt too small. After he left, she changed into a clean shirt and trousers someone had left folded on the bed. They were far too big but warm. She crawled under the blanket and closed her eyes. Yet sleep didn't come easily. Outside, she heard distant laughter from the ranch hands, uncertain whether she belonged here, whether she ever could. But Asha's voice echoed in her mind, "I don't give charity. I give chances." No one had ever offered her a chance without asking something in return. Could she trust this one? Emily stared at the ceiling until her eyes finally drifted shut. For the first time since her father died, her heart wasn't clenched in fear. For the first time, she felt the faint stirrings of hope. And though she didn't realize it yet, Asha Red Wolf, quiet and fierce as a mountain storm, was already becoming the anchor her lost world needed. Morning came with a soft glow over Asha Red Wolf's ranch. The sun cut across the wide fields, gilding the tall grass like gold threads. Emily woke to the sounds of horses whinnying and the low murmur of the ranch hands preparing for a long day. She had slept better than she had in weeks, yet the reality of her new life settled on her like the dust outside. This was not charity. This was work hard, honest, relentless work. Asha stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp but not unkind. "Up," he said simply. "You will need to learn if you intend to stay." Emily climbed from the small bed, muscles stiff from disuse, and followed him outside. The ranch spread out like a miniature kingdom, cattle grazing in neat pens, horses in the stable, wagons lined up, waiting for the day's tasks. Asha led her to a horse that nickered softly as she approached. "This one is yours today," he said. "Name it if you like. You'll be riding, feeding, learning to handle livestock. You'll sweat, you'll ache, and you will learn." Emily nodded, trying to steady her voice. "I'll do my best. You'd better." His voice held no threat, only truth. "This ranch doesn't run on hope alone." And so it began. She mucked stalls, fed the horses, and learned the rhythm of the cattle. Asha watched closely, offering occasional advice in his deep, even voice. "Keep your back straight when you lift," he said one morning. "Don't rush the rope. Calm hands catch more than fear." Emily noticed, almost against her will, how his eyes lingered on her, not in ownership, but in assessment. There was pride there, respect, and something she couldn't name yet. Each glance made her pulse quicken. She chastised herself. She couldn't afford distraction. She had survived poverty and loss. She could survive work, but it was harder than she expected. Some of the ranch hands whispered among themselves, "She never last. Boss, why bring a white girl here?" Emily heard, and for a moment, doubt flickered. The stairs weighed heavier than any shovel or feed sack. She looked to Asha, expecting him to turn away to punish or to ignore her. Instead, he simply continued his work, silent as a shadow. Confident she would rise to the challenge or fail trying. By the end of the week, Emily's hands were raw, her legs sore, and her muscles tight in ways they hadn't been since childhood chores on her family's ranch. Yet she felt alive. Every ache, every blister was proof that she was becoming useful, capable. And somewhere in the exhaustion, she realized she was learning to belong. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, Asha rode up beside her while she cleaned tack in the corral. The air was rich with the scent of hay and horses and the faint smell of smoke from the cooking fire. He dismounted and leaned against the rail, arms folded, watching her. "You've improved," he said quietly. "Faster, steadier, more confident." Emily straightened, brushing dirt from her hands. "I have a teacher who doesn't tolerate excuses," she said, a small, teasing smile slipping past her lips. Asha's eyes softened briefly, but his tone remained even. "Good. You will need more than strength. You'll need patience. And you'll need to listen." She laughed softly, the sound foreign to her own ears. "I can do that too." Their conversation ended there, but in the quiet moment, Emily realized something else. She was noticing him more than she should. The way he moved, careful, purposeful. The way he watched the horses, the ranch hands her. The way he listened. He wasn't the intimidating, wealthy figure the town feared. He was steady, reliable, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, filling a space inside her she hadn't thought could exist anymore. That night, Emily sat by the fire in her small room. She wrote a few lines in a tattered journal she had salvaged from her old home. Not letters to anyone, just words to remind herself she was still here, still learning, still surviving. She wrote about the chores, the cattle, the stares from the men, and most of all, the quiet kindness of Asha Red Wolf. Her heart ached with longing she didn't fully understand. It frightened her. She had lost so much already. Could she risk hope again? Could she risk him? But even in that fear, Emily felt a spark she hadn't felt in years. Hope. And with hope came the realization that maybe, just maybe, she belonged here. On this ranch, beside this man who had given her a chance when the world had abandoned her. The wind carried an uneasy chill that morning, despite the rising sun over Asha Red Wolf's ranch. Emily moved through the fields with practiced efficiency, brushing down horses and checking fences, but her mind was restless. The ranch felt safe, almost like a haven, but safety is often an illusion in the Wild West. She had learned that the hard way. A distant rumble broke the quiet, and the horses pricked their ears. Emily turned, squinting at the horizon. Dust clouds swirled along the road into the valley. Men on horseback, armed, hard-eyed, and unmistakably from town. Her stomach sank. She recognized the shapes of their hats, the swagger in their ride. Her father's rivals. The same men who had seized her family's ranch, leaving her destitute and wandering in the streets. They were coming for her. Emily froze. Her hand shook as she looked toward the ranch house. Asha was already moving, calm but purposeful, signaling the ranch hands to gather in the yard. The men approached slowly, deliberately, giving no indication of mercy. "Red Wolf," one called, voice rough and cruel. "That girl of yours doesn't belong here. She's a street rat, not a lady, and she sure as hell doesn't belong with an Apache." Emily's cheeks burned not with shame, but anger. She clenched her fists at her sides. The words stung, yes, but they no longer had the power to crush her spirit. She had learned strength on this ranch. She had learned work, endurance, and courage. Asha stepped forward, tall and unyielding. "She stays where she is valued," he said, voice steady and cold as iron. "Leave now, and no one gets hurt." The men laughed, a short, vicious sound that carried across the yard. "Valued? She's a pawn, Red Wolf. Give her back or there'll be trouble." Emily swallowed hard. She could see the danger guns, resentment, the long history of greed and prejudice. She stepped forward, heart racing, and spoke in a low, urgent whisper. "Asha, you don't have to fight them because of me." No, he cut her off, placing a hand lightly but firmly on her shoulder. "You are not a burden. You are becoming my responsibility, and I will not see you harmed. Trust me." Emily wanted to protest, but the fire in his eyes silenced her. He wasn't just strong, he was unshakable, a man who believed in right and wrong, justice and loyalty. The standoff stretched long. Dust kicked up around boots and hooves, the men glaring, Asha's hands resting near his belt, ready, but not striking. Finally, the leader spat on the ground. "You'll regret this." Nobody defies us and walks away. Then he and his men turned, leaving as abruptly as they had arrived. The dust cloud trailed behind them, leaving the ranch quiet again, but Emily's heart thumped and her hands shook. She realized with a jolt how much she had come to rely on this man who stood like a mountain in front of her. That evening, Emily packed a small bundle of belongings: her journal, a few spare clothes, and her mother's old shawl. Her eyes were damp, but her resolve was clear. She couldn't let Asha risk himself for her. She had survived without him. She could leave, disappear into the hills, and let him return to his ranch unscathed. She crept silently to the back of the ranch house, avoiding the ranch hands. Her horse waited, saddled and ready. She mounted quickly, heart pounding. One last glance at the home she had come to love and the man she had come to care for was all she allowed before urging the horse into the shadowed path leading away from the valley. Asha Red Wolf noticed immediately. He had been watching from the porch, waiting, and the moment he saw the absence of her figure, he knew. With swift, silent motion, he mounted his own horse and took off after her, the wind whipping through his hair. Emily had gone only a short distance before she felt his presence behind her, steady and sure. Her pulse quickened not with fear, but relief and something deeper. "Asha," she whispered, turning slightly in the saddle. "I didn't want. I couldn't let you. You don't leave for me," he said firmly, closing the distance. "You stay because you want to. Because you choose." Tears pricked her eyes. She had spent years surviving, running, begging, and fearing. But now, standing on the edge of freedom and danger, she realized that for the first time she had a choice. And for the first time, she didn't want to run. "Then I choose to stay," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Asha's hand brushed hers briefly on the reins, a simple gesture, yet full of promise. "Good," he said quietly, "because I would never let the world take you again." Emily's heart swelled with relief, gratitude, and something new love. The storm had passed, but the bond between them had grown stronger, forged in the heat of danger and trust. For the first time, Emily felt not just safe, but protected, valued, and seen for who she truly was. As they rode back to the ranch together, side by side, she understood something vital. Sometimes, survival isn't just about food or shelter. Sometimes, it's about finding someone willing to stand in the storm with you, and she had found that in Asha Red Wolf. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew on grass and the faint smoke of the cooking fire from the ranch. Emily Harper sat quietly on the porch, brushing the dust from her dress. Her hands trembled not from cold, but from the weight of her thoughts. The previous day's confrontation had shaken her. She had fled not from danger, but from her own fear. Fear of what staying meant. Fear that Asha Red Wolf might risk himself for her sake. Fear of letting herself feel something she had long denied. Hope, trust, and the stirrings of love. She had thought she could run. She had thought she could protect him by disappearing into the hills. But deep in her heart, she knew she could not. The thought of leaving him, even for safety, felt like losing herself all over again. Footsteps sounded on the porch. Emily stiffened. "Asha," she whispered, turning. He was there, tall and imposing, yet calm, his eyes soft with concern. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice trembling. I thought it was safer if I left." Asha shook his head. "Safe?" he said, his voice low but firm. "Emily, running does not make anyone safe. You think leaving will protect me, but it only hides you from yourself, from the truth you've been avoiding." Her heart ached at the words. The truth. She had been running from it for months, ever since hunger, loss, and fear had brought her to his ranch. She began, then faltered. I didn't want you to be hurt because of me. I can't let anyone get hurt for my sake. Asha stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. Emily, listen to me. You are not a burden. You are not trouble. You are a person strong, courageous, and worthy of care. And I care for you? Her breath caught in her throat. Care? It was more than that. She had felt it, the way he had watched over her, taught her, protected her. She had felt it in the quiet moments, the way his gaze lingered, the way he trusted her to learn, to grow. And in that care, she had begun to feel something more. Something dangerous, something wonderful. Love. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, I don't know how to trust it. How to trust you or myself. Asha tilted her head, his amber eyes unwavering. Trust is not given blindly. It is built, moment by moment, through action, through honesty, through being seen. I have seen you, Emily. I have seen your strength, your heart. And I choose you. Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, to deny, to argue, but the words would not come. Instead, she did the only thing her heart dared. She reached for his hand, letting it rest in hers. Warmth, steady and grounding, flowed through her. I beg, she said softly, her voice shaking but clear. I beg to stay by your side. Not for safety, not for food, but because I want to. Because I choose you. Asha's expression softened, and a small, almost imperceptible smile appeared. Then you shall stay, he said, voice low, almost a whisper. Because that is what I wanted you to feel freedom to choose and the courage to claim it. Emily's chest swelled with emotion, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and love. She had expected danger, struggle, perhaps even heartbreak, but never this. Never this sense of belonging, of being truly seen and valued. He stepped closer, tilting his face toward hers. You are brave, he said, voice gentle. Braver than you know. And I will not let the world take that from you. She lifted her face, meeting his gaze. Her fear melted, replaced by trust and desire. I trust you, she whispered. For a long moment, they simply stood there, the wind rustling the grass, the world around them quiet except for the soft sounds of the ranch waking to a new day. Emily realized with a joy she had not known in years that she was no longer running. She was no longer hiding. She was home at last, not just in place, but in heart. Asha reached for her hand again, this time with certainty. Then let us face what comes together, he said, voice strong, protective, full of promise. Not as master and servant, not as rescuer and rescued, but as equals partners. Emily nodded, tears slipping freely now, not from fear, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, chosen, and loved. She pressed her hand into his, feeling the steady beat of his strength, and knew without doubt that she was finally safe. Not just in body, but in spirit. And for the first time in years, Emily Harper allowed herself to believe in something she had once thought impossible, that love could heal, protect, and give life a second chance. The sun hung low over the valley, painting the horizon in gold and crimson. The ranch lay quiet, peaceful after the chaos of the past weeks. Emily Harper stood on the porch, watching the cattle graze, the wind tugging gently at her hair. Life had changed in ways she could never have imagined once a starving, desperate girl wandering the streets of Dust Creek. She now had a home, purpose, and someone who saw her for who she truly was. Asha Red Wolf approached from the fields, his horse ambling behind him. He dismounted, boots crunching softly against the wooden porch. Emily felt her heart skip as he came closer, steady, sure, familiar. He stopped in front of her, his amber eyes warm, patient, and full of unspoken promise. Morning, he he said. Voice low, almost teasing. Morning, she replied, a smile tugging at her lips. They had spent weeks building the ranch together, fencing, feeding, learning the rhythms of cattle and horses. Emily had discovered strength she didn't know she possessed, and Asha had seen it, nurtured it, and admired it, never diminishing her achievements with pity, only respect. Their bond had deepened with each passing day, tempered by hard work and shared trust. You know, he said, leaning against the railing, I never thought I'd find someone who could keep up with me out here. You've surprised me. Emily laughed softly. I've had a good teacher. He smiled, and in that small movement, she saw the life they were building together, a life of equality, respect, and partnership. But the past had not forgotten her completely. A few town folk still whispered, uneasy about the girl who had vanished from Dust Creek, only to appear under the roof of a wealthy Apache rancher. Still, Emily no longer feared them. Their opinions held no power. She had found her place not in their acceptance, but in her own strength, and in the bond she shared with Asha. One afternoon, as they walked along the edge of the pasture, Asha stopped and turned to her. Emily, he said, taking both her hands in his, you have worked hard to earn your place here, to rebuild yourself. And I've watched you. You are not only worthy, you are remarkable. I want you by my side, not as someone I save, but as someone I choose every day. Her breath caught and tears threatened, but they were tears of joy. She realized that she, too, had grown not only in skill and confidence, but in heart. I choose you, Asha, she whispered, her voice steady despite emotion. I choose to stay, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because I love you. Asha's smile widened, and he pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her in a hug that felt like home. Emily rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. In that moment, the world felt right. The fear, the hunger, the loneliness all gone, replaced by love, trust, and the promise of tomorrow. Asha led her toward the fields where the ranch hands worked, and together they surveyed the land, future pastures, barns, and the ranch house. We'll restore your family's land, he said. Turn it into something that belongs to both of us. Not just a home, but a life we build together. Emily's heart soared. The thought of reclaiming what was lost, not through luck, but through effort, partnership, and love, filled her with hope. And the town? She asked softly. Asha looked out toward the distant horizon, amber eyes steady. Let them whisper. We know the truth. We have each other, and that is more than enough. In the months that followed, the ranch thrived. Emily's hands, once raw and trembling, were now calloused and strong. She rode alongside Asha, managing the cattle, teaching the younger hands, and helping neighbors in need. The town slowly began to see her not as a pawn or a girl in need, but as a capable, strong woman and a partner to a man of honor. On quiet evenings, Emily and Asha would sit by the fire, sharing stories of their pasts, their hopes, and their dreams. Laughter became frequent, the bond between them unbreakable. They had faced hunger, fear, prejudice, and danger, and together they had risen above it all. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Asha took Emily's hands in his once more. This, he said, sweeping a hand across the ranch, the fields, the life they had built, is only the beginning. Our future is wide, open, and ours to shape. Emily looked into his eyes, feeling the truth in every word. And I'll shape it with you, she said, her voice full of certainty, love. And hope. The wind carried their laughter across the valley. The horses nickered softly. And the ranch, once a place of fear and uncertainty, was now a home filled with love, trust, and promise. Emily Harper had found more than shelter. She had found purpose, courage. and a man who valued her not for what she had lost, but for the strength, heart, and spirit she had rebuilt. And as the sun sank behind the hills, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold, Emily realized that sometimes the richest treasure in the West isn't land, cattle, or wealth. It's love that sees you, trust that strengthens you, and the chance to start again, together. The end.